So who are we? Who are FUF? In Swedish, it's the Föreningen för utvecklingsfrågor, and in English, it's the Swedish Development Forum. And so we're a non-partisan and religiously independent non-for-profit organization. We are based here in Uppsala, but we also have a mother organization for the whole Sweden, and also smaller organizations as this in Uppsala in other parts of Sweden as well. And our main purpose is to inform, keep an engaging debate, and raise awareness regarding global development issues. And with that, we hope to contribute to a more just and sustainable world. And me, who's speaking, I'm Emma, and I've been a part of FUF since this autumn. And normally I'm a student in economics here at Uppsala University. So for tonight, we have two guest speakers here with us. First is Ashok Swain, and we feel very honored to have you here. Swain is a professor at Peace and Conflict Research here at Uppsala University, and also an UNESCO Chair of International Water Cooperation, and the Director of Research School of International Water Cooperation at Uppsala University, among many other things. And he will tell us more about water scarcity and conflict in India. And our second guest speaker we have here with us is Debora Falk. And Falk is a water engineer with a special interest in global development. And also among many other things, Falk has studied water sanitation and development at the Indian Institute of Technology in New Delhi, India. And Falk will talk more about sanitation and the consequences of the caste system regarding sanitation and water in India. So first of all, we just like to thank both of you for being with us here. And before we begin, I will just ask if there's any questions regarding the practical information and so on. I see you shake your heads. So if there are any questions, you can always ask them in the chat. But without further ado, I guess the floor is yours, Ashok.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to speak to the younger crowd. As you know, I'm making the age per capita quite very different in this group. So, but that's India's. I mean, I would like to speak a little bit about India's water insecurity or water security, and I will give the first introductions on this, and then India's sharing of water with its neighboring countries and how that really makes it much more conflictual. And also then, if you know, I will basically deal how they want to deal this water scarcity issue within India and what are the problems coming out of it. I will go a bit quickly because I understand that's a lot to cover in 20 minutes. And I have also a tendency to speak longer than what I should. So Emma, please, if I just go more than what I'm supposed to, just wave your hand as much, or you can shout whatever the way you can do, and I will stop. Water scarcity in India is real. It's difficult to sit in Sweden and when it's always raining or snowing to think about this reason which can be so water scarce. It's a population density, poverty, the conflict and the climate change, and also areas of conflicts where you can have proper water management. This checks more challenging. Population boom has taken place quite a bit. I mean, I came to Sweden or to Uppsala 30 years ago. 30 years ago, there were 873 million people in India. Now 1.38 billion. To put in 30 years, India has created 40 Sweden, added 40 Sweden more. So we have to look at it, the number of population growth. It's not only the population growth itself is taking a lot of water, but also the way the water is being used and the economic development taking place, or water is misused, all these things which makes it quite challenging. And the per capita annual water availability when India, immediately after India got its independence or became a country in the post-colonial page in 1951, it was 5,177 cubic meter per capita. But now it has gone down to 1,500. And when you reach almost 1,000, 1,200, it's a very rough calculations. Actually, Malin Falkenmark started this calculation, so whether you go into the water stress. But I think it's quite important to keep that mind that India's water availability per capita has also reduced because of to a massive scale, but mainly due to the population growth. But India is, as anywhere else, it's not only the volume is decreasing, but also very seasonal. That if some time of the year, there are plenty of water. I mean, you hear sometimes, a couple of months or 3 months in the month, sometime it's floods. And there was this year, any year you go to India, there will be lots of flood in certain areas, and also I come from a very flood affected area, flood prone area in the southeastern part of India. But that's the only few months in a year. So it's a huge seasonal challenge. There are certain time of the year, there are plenty of water comes, which creates a huge devastation. You might see that in per capita water that it's not showing, but if you look at it, it's not exactly available all through the year. So we need to keep that in mind, and then but also this problem is quite a South Asian problem, and and then when I come back to this sharing rivers, then you will understand why. It's except if you know South Asia region, it's except Bhutan and Nepal, all the South Asian countries, they're actually having serious water per capita water availability problem. And in India itself, 600 million people in India are already at the high risk, unable to continue to rely on the surface water. And that's not my figure, that's the figure of the Indian government. So it's 600 million people do have that problem. And they're saying that the water supply may fall 50% below demand by 2030 in another 19 years. So it will be, the supply will fall below 50% than what it is. So it's a massive change will take place. Already a total of 21 major cities in India have run out of the groundwater. And Bangalore is one of the cities, which is a massive one, particularly it's called the Silicon Valley of India, where most of the computer people are there. That's on the verge of imminent water crisis. And the groundwater is steadily depleting for years, but it also makes up 40% of the India's water supply. So this is the way it is depleting, and it's creating the real challenge that 40% of groundwater is going away. While India, after post-independence period, had created a massive number of dams, there are few countries like India, China, Turkey, among the developing countries, they're not developed. I mean, yeah. So anyway, we don't need to get into that part. But it's a large number of dams have been built. It was that time India's first prime minister described it as the temples of modern India. And the number, around 20-25 million people have been displaced because of dams. That's a different story. But those dams which have been built, you need to keep the water reservoirs. That 2/3 of all these dams are below normal level. So the dams had been built with such a huge amount of resources, creating environmental destructions, creating massive number of displacement, but those dams don't have the water anymore. That amount of water which needs to give you water security. While this is the general problem, if you look at the India's map or South Asian map, particularly the northern part of India and some parts of western and some large part of eastern part of India, the water which they get in the river are not Indian water on itself, because it's Indian. It flows through India, like the rivers like Ganges, Indus, Brahmaputra, which these three major rivers which I'll talk about, those rivers originate, or the water originates either in China or Bhutan or Nepal. So these water are not Indian water per se, or India doesn't have the full control over this water. But these rivers really provide the water to the most of the, besides it's a huge cultural significance, it has a huge all other significance, but it's economically and particularly water-wise, these are extremely critical to this India's water security. Let's talk about the Indus. Indus is, usually we know that it is a river between India and Pakistan, but actually the river is main river is Indus and 5 tributaries. So it's a 6 river system, but main river comes from China, but also tributaries come from Afghanistan. So it's a river system which actually China, India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, but there is an agreement between India and Pakistan in 1960. So for the last 60 years, these two countries do have a water agreement on the Indus water, though they have fought in between 3 wars, and they keep fighting every time. There is an agreement which goes on, but if I can come back if you have some questions afterwards. But what is happening now? That this river, which is extremely important, particularly provide the what you call the bread basket. Pakistan is like Egypt, second Egypt. Pakistan is completely dependent on the water which doesn't originate from in its region, and it's like in an Indus irrigation system, it's dependent. It's after Egypt, second is Pakistan. But the Indian side of which produce most of the agricultural products, a large number of agriculture, which is called the bread basket of India, Punjab, which you will see there is a lot of farmers' protest going on. This is the area also dependent on the water coming from the Indus. And Indus also, the Indus is a part of the Kashmiri problem, which you might have heard. The two countries, they love to fight with each other, but they do cooperate on this part, on the water sharing. But that cooperation also has a number of uncertainty, because there is a huge lack of trust between these two countries. They do not exactly cooperate the way there is an agreement. It doesn't mean that they do cooperate well. There are all sorts of conflicts have come in. Now, for the last 4 or 5 years, India is threatening that to stop the water going to Pakistan, which creates a lot of insecurity within Pakistan. But of course, we can discuss it, but India doesn't have the capability to really stop these 3 rivers going to Pakistan. But this kind of challenge situation makes it much more, problem much more complicated. Similarly, the Ganges part, which comes from most of the river comes from, the water comes from upstream from Nepal. India, Nepal had a little bit better relations for a long time, but now that is also going bad. So the water comes from Nepal. India has built a number of barrages in Nepal. Though they blame when the flood comes, they say that Nepalis are sending the water, but actually Indians are actually controlling those barrages. But then this Ganges River water goes to Bangladesh. And Bangladesh, of course, exactly similar like India. Bangladesh, you probably know that's a country known for floods, but country only for 3 months flood time. The other 9 months, the country struggles for the water. And when the Ganges River goes from India to Bangladesh, since 1975, India has built a barrage to divert the water before reaching to Bangladesh, to divert it to its own river system. It's called Farakka Barrage. So there has been a number of conflicts which was going on over that Farakka Barrage. But they signed an agreement in 96 December, and that agreement is for 30 years. So in 2006, that agreement will come to an end. The problem is now there is less water available on the basis of which they had signed the agreement 30 years ago, and that is not there because of the and more demands, because all these countries are demanding more water. So the problem will be how they will sign a new agreement, if the agreement will be signed. So that's another conflict which is coming up. Then the Brahmaputra River, which is called the Yarlung River in China, is half of the river travels through Tibetan Plateau, goes through a big bend, and then comes to the Indian side, Indian's northeastern side, and then enters into Bangladesh. But that river has a much more dry season flow, at least 2.5 times more dry season flow than the Ganges. But the problem is, on that river, there is no agreement. China was never a party to it because China, that area was not developed. But as you know, China has developed quite big way nowadays, and China has started building dams. India used to have all kinds of plan to divert that water from Brahmaputra to its main river system to the mainland side. But now China has already almost built 3 dams, and China is planning to build the major dam, which can be in the Big Bend, which might take the water, or there is some kind of plan to divert the water towards the northern part of China. As you know, China has all kinds of these interesting plans all the time. And China, if anyone can have that kind of plan and anyone can really execute it, and that's China can do. And that really creates lots of insecurity in India. So, and then the similar case also going on with the Bhutan. Bhutan is the only country in this part which was quite part of this Indian system, and then Bhutan's foreign policy was been controlled by India mostly. Bhutan doesn't have foreign policy. It's India which controls its foreign policy and security policy. Bhutan is a very well known. I mean, I think probably Bhutan is quite has appreciation from our royal family to all over. So Sweden has some good connections with the Bhutan. But this Bhutan, India has been building a lot of hydropower dams there. But Bhutan is gradually trying to democratize. And these hydropower dams, which India is building in Bhutan, is becoming a hugely political issue. And that is really, creating, making relationship much more problematic. And like country like Nepal, like country like Bhutan or Nepal, Pakistan, China has a very, a strong relationship for a long period of time. But China is also becoming influential, becoming extremely active in the water sector development in all sorts of ways, but in the water sector development, particularly with the BRI, this is called the road, what do you call that? The Belt Road program, sorry, the Belt Road Initiative. I'm old now, I don't remember things. So, but the Belt Road Initiative, building a lot of dams and stuff. It's building dams in Kashmir, part of the Pakistan, part of the Kashmir. Also planning to build dams in Nepal, but trying to bring $10 billion to Bhutan. Recently allocated $1 billion to develop the Bangladesh river system. So I think it's a huge involvement of China, which is really making also bringing insecurity to India, because India was behaving as if this is a powerful country. It was a powerful country in South Asia. It was its area of influence where Pakistan was just trying to compete with, somehow resisting it. But in the cases like in Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh, India was quite, and also global power had left India to this is the area of influence, but not anymore. China has become, and China also, the upstream of these 3 rivers somehow comes through China, particularly Brahmaputra and Indus, and particularly Brahmaputra, which China, where it has come up as a major player, and the role of the India as the upstream country or the major upstream or powerful country has changed quite dramatically. I'm trying to give you some glimpses of what is going on, and I don't have, I don't want to bore you with all the details. And if you want to know the details, that way, to come back anytime. I'm in Uppsala, but then. What is going on within India? Because this is somehow is also need to. How many minutes I have, Emma?
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, oh, good. You see, India hasn't learned from its kind of mal-development policy, which it had. India, of course, needed certain kind of water management. India used to be affected by flood. India needed some irrigation system in the post-independence time. As you know, any kind of post-colonial state, ask for this kind of food security to gain certain kind of legitimacy. But while it was building all these dams and irrigation facilities, of course, many people got displaced, and it also created a number of environmental, ecological, economic problems. But India became food sufficient somehow because, there has been certain kind of agricultural productions which come. But now how India wants to get out of it, you should have understood what has been problem, because these kind of large scale water development projects and the irrigation projects have not exactly been the sustainable. But to get out of it, they're trying to build more dams, not only build more dams, more reservoirs, they're trying to interlink their own rivers. There's a massive, this is not a new idea. This idea was even the British time. This idea sometimes comes, sometimes goes, but now in the present leadership has taken up this work quite strongly. So trying to link one rivers with each other. This will be politically suicidal, economically, no one knows how much money will be. There is no environmental impact assessment has taken place. Why I say, I don't care even economic and environment for this, just to give you, because I'm a conflict researcher. So what will happen is that this will create a mass, because among Indian provinces, India is a federal country. So there are many states, those who are, and you will have to divert water from one state to another state. That will create a massive internal conflict. And that is also creating insecurity, particularly in the minds of Pakistan, Nepal, and Bangladesh, and Bhutan, that India, once it goes into like this interlinking these rivers, then it will also divert the water from them or force them to get their water. So it's an internal issue which is going on in India, which is not exactly learning from its own previous mistakes, and also the present global strategy, how to really develop to address the demand side rather than moving the supply side all the time. You cannot supply water as much as you need. It's not impossible unless you really look at and then there is also the pollution. I think probably Debora will bring it, but the pollution has become really, really terrible in some of the rivers. Though there has been all these kind of talk of that, cleaning the river, particularly Ganges River, which is being cleaned since my childhood. And it is the most dirtiest river or most polluted river in the world. So this is India for you. So I say, but to end, or for the time being, this is changing politics, which I mentioned, within India and with the countries with neighbor, changing climates and changing power. These are all things changing, which is really brings or to make the water scenario absolutely dreadful in the future. And unfortunately, the decision maker, the policy maker, and the political power have no inkling till now what the issue looks like. And I think the World Water Day is coming the Monday. But the one thing which before I know I'm taking a little more longer time, but one thing which I want to say that this is something a tricky scenario, because you have to give the experts or the water professionals to run this, how to manage this, because water professionals understands the real challenge which is coming. But for the politicians, this is the politics which really takes the priority. So they want to politicize it because they get the benefit. So while the politicians do not want to leave it to the water professionals, this is a scenario which has developed that it is not being addressed. So, but the water professionals also in many cases are unable to convince the politicians. That's something, or they do not have the system in place how to convince the politicians. So I think there is a big divide between the water professionals and the politics which goes in the country. And this will be not only an issue for the country itself, but also for the region, at least immediately. And it's a country of such a huge size and huge character. It will have also global implications. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashok. Really, I've just I've written down so much of what you said, and we will continue to go back to you during the Q&A in 20 minutes. But first, thank you. Really, really interesting. So now we welcome up Debora.
Thank you so much. So nice to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I would like to start by asking you to log into menti.com and then put in this number here that you can see on the screen. I hope everybody knows how to do it or learn how to do it. It's very, very simple. And I also would like you to answer this question that we have here. What are the main problems with not using or having toilets? And while you start logging in and start answering this question, I would like to tell you a little bit about myself. So I am a water engineer from Gothenburg that I've been studying at Chalmers. I'm working mostly with water treatment, like drinking water and wastewater treatment. I've also been studying in Delhi, at IIT Delhi, for those of you that are Indian and knows about this. And I've also been working with WASH, water, sanitation, and hygiene. So that's something very important for us working with these issues. It's not only about water for me, it's not only about sanitation, but also the hygiene, WASH, for different types of organization, for instance, Doctors Without Water, but also other ones. So thank you so much, Sir Ashok Swain, very much. Thank you. You have been talking more about the water part, and therefore I decided to talk more about sanitation. Because it's also like a neglected question, I would say, and a very important question. And especially if we would like to talk about India and comparing it to other countries, because we have so many problems when it comes to water and sanitation that we can see in many countries. And we will talk about that also, but I will try to pinpoint some of them that is slightly different from other countries, because there are quite few things that are that we don't really see or face as like big problems when we work with WASH in other countries. And please, I'm so sorry, because I will generalize a lot. And India is huge, so whatever I say, it will not be true for every part. So it's maybe not even a country, maybe it should be a continent. But I will still try to generalize, and I will also talk like this would be a Swedish audience. And I know maybe some of you from India would find this very simplified. But anyway, I will try to keep it simple, and that will also create this kind of small problem. But I hope we will have time afterwards to maybe like further on discuss and maybe trying to pinpoint and not do as generalized. But here we have a lot of things. What are the problems? Yeah. Hygiene, infection diseases. Yeah, so this is one of the first things that we see around the world. Lack of sanitation, lack of toilets. There's so much risk of spreading diseases. And in India today, I will try to not take too much numbers, but like approximately 1 out of 10 deaths is because of sanitation in India. And a lot of kids, you go out, you poo, you have this contamination going out in the rivers, where whatever, and then you get sick, you get diarrhea, and people die way too early. So this is a problem that we see in many countries, and also a lot in India. So what more do we have? Not enough maintenance, yes, for sure. People don't want to use the toilets. Mental health, yes. Insecurity, yeah, we have a lot of things here. Safety for women, yes. So when we talk about sanitation, we have to think about that lack of sanitation or lack of toilets. It's both like a danger to health, like we talk about here, having the infectious diseases, but it's also a danger to environment and a danger to security. And we already got some of these examples here. And a very important word that I would like you to learn now is open defecation. I know that many people in Sweden maybe never heard about this word. What is open defecation? So open defecation means that for some reason you don't have or you don't use a toilet, and therefore you go out in the open air for doing your business. You pee and poo outside somewhere. And it could be on a field, but it could also be behind a house, on a railway, or whatever you find it necessary. So that's open defecation. And this is one of the main problems with toilets. And when you think about India and sanitation, very fast you have to think about the situation for women in India. And here we have it, safety for women. Someone wrote that. Because like, even though this is also a problem in other parts of the world, for instance, when we talk about refugee camps, etc., we also have to think about this. But for sure in India, this is a huge problem that you can also very much directly connect to sanitation. Because a lot of women, they don't feel that they can go out and do their business out in the air whenever, like during daytime. So they have to go when it's dark, during night. And if you don't find anyone to walk with, there is the risk of being raped. There is the risk of being killed. And we have seen many cases of this, many cases of women being raped because they have to go out, leave their house, and then they're vulnerable. So for instance, this movie, Toilet, A Love Story, I had to take this picture because, yeah, it's a movie that in some way describes, it's such a cliche movie, I'm sorry. But anyway, so what we can see in this movie is this man and woman, they are getting married. And on the first night, she wakes up in the middle of the night of the wedding, and someone is knocking on her door, and that's the ladies from the village telling her, now it's time to go out and poo. Let's go together. They walk together. And this is something we see all over India, that women go out in the middle of the night to try to protect themselves, to do open defecation. Huge problem. So what more do we have here? Safety for women in sun, water pollution. We have many different things. Menstruation, of course, menstruation is the huge problem when you don't have a toilet. Like, how do you even do this? How do you change shampoo? How do you wash your hand? How do you make sure that you can do this in a safe way? Yeah, so for sure we have a big problem here by not having toilets. But I would say that if you compare India to many other countries, this has been a lot on the agenda, like high up also, like in the political agenda. I wouldn't say that there is many other countries talking about this issue in such like actually having the prime minister talking a lot about this issue. So Narendra Modi, he's there. How to say it in a good way? There's a lot of things you can criticize him for, and for sure also regarding sanitation. But and I will try to not talk about that because I'm not the best one to talk about it. There's a lot of other people that will be able to fill in. But there has been a huge campaign from the Prime Minister regarding toilets. Everyone should have a toilet. Everyone should be open defecation free everywhere in India. And when I told one of my Indian friends about this movie, Toilet, A Love Story, she directly said, oh, that's propaganda, moody propaganda, all these Bollywood movies, all these famous actors, right-wing people that yeah, anyway, let's not go too deep into politics. But for sure, it's a very high prioritized question in India compared to many other countries. And that's something that we found very different compared to other countries, yes. So they have been really trying to change this situation. But how do you change it? How do you improve this kind of situation? So I would like you to do a thumbs up if you think that the way to change a situation when it comes to sanitation in India is done by technical solution, and you do a heart if you think it's the social change that is needed. You do it like down here. Hope you will be able. Some hearts coming out, maybe some thumbs up later on, let's see. And while that, I will continue a little bit. Because this is something I very often, a lot of people ask me, like, hey, you're an engineer, so I guess what kind of technical solutions would there be there to solve this issue? Oh, no thumbs up. Everyone just gives me a heart. One heart there. Thank you so much. Well, maybe an engineer. Because, yeah, we have for sure, there is a need of technical solutions, yes, but that's not the only way to solve it, right? Good, I just wanted to check in a little bit because I will give you a question now. So have your Mentior ready. And please be fast also. The faster you are, the more points you get. And maybe Ashok will be the fastest one, let's see. So how many percentage in rural India have access to toilets? This is according to the official numbers. What do you think? According to official numbers, how many percentage in the rural India, not the urban, have access to toilets? Time's up. Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, but actually, according to the official numbers, because now we're thinking about the official numbers, there is actually 100% of sanitation coverage in rural India today. Incredible. But I would be very skeptical with this figure. And that's something you have to remember when we talk about figures and when someone asks me, how is it going with India now? How is the development of India when it comes to sanitation, for instance? Because yeah, there is for sure a lot of toilets that has been built. And this is mainly because there have been a priority by building toilets, like 100 million toilets in 5 years is a number I've heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but anyway. But I think people should be very skeptical when you hear these numbers from official numbers, because there have been studies, so some studies from north of India, I don't say that this would be for the whole India, but from North India saying that 25% is a percentage of people that have a toilet still don't use it. So even if you would have 100% coverage of toilets in a village, 25% would still not use it. They would still do the open defecation study. And another study have shown in another area that even though the access to toilet have increased from down here, 30% to 70%, which also is crazy a lot, like a lot of toilets. But 2 years ago, still more than half of the population used open defecation in this area. So yeah, just keep those figures in mind. And that's of course for every country, but also very much for India, since this has been a part of a political agenda, let's say, for the Modi government to give everyone access to toilets. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, sorry, no one won since no one knew the right answer. That's how it could be. So what kind of problems do we have connected to many of the toilets in India? Like, why are they not used? Can you please point in what kind of problems you think there are connected to toilets? And please try to think about India also. And we have some things we can see all over the world and also some things we have only in India. Please write on your Menti and add some there. No one? No one writing? What kind of problems? Okay, I will start a little bit anyway, because we had someone already saying that, or Ashok was saying that wastewater is a big problem. What kind of, that you have the wastewater and it goes untreated, all this sewage is going out in the rivers. And then you have this huge contamination of potential drinking water. So that's a huge problem connected to toilets in India. Yes, we have many things here. Maintenance, for sure, maintenance. Even independent if you have a toilet that is working or not, maintenance is a huge problem, not maintaining. Yes, exactly. So even though there are toilets and all these millions of toilets that has been built, many of them are not used because they're not maintained. So people don't want to use it. Someone wrote smelly somewhere here. Yes, that's the thing. If it smells, you don't want to use it. And independent, if it smells, maybe you don't want to use it. I've also heard people saying, please, this is not true, but I've heard people saying that it's more hygienic to poo in the open air, like doing the open defecation. It's more hygienic, so let's do that. So there are beliefs, there are different views on this. Yeah, antibiotic resistance. For sure, this would be something for the future to really keep your mind on. But if you have the microbiological, you have the chemicals, you have many different things in the wastewater, both from toilets, but also from industry. So many things in the sewage going in. We have the lack of water. So some people, in some places, when you build toilets, you can either build them by having dry toilets, but you can also have like water-based toilets like we have in Sweden in different ways. And then you use a lot of water. And if you don't have water, you cannot use these toilets. So then you build a toilet that you cannot use, for instance. And so no one wrote money here, I could see, right? Because that would be something I would also add to this, that maybe you have a toilet in the middle of the village or town or whatever, but you have to pay for it, and maybe it's too expensive for you to pay for it. And it could be used for storage. Something that many of these things we can see in many places around the earth. These kind of problems, even though they could be bigger or smaller in different countries. But when it comes to the caste system that someone wrote here, and you were also talking about it in the beginning here, you introduced me with this. This is something that really is making a huge difference if you compare India to other countries, and the problem that creates with sanitation. So for instance, if you compare a normal septic tank. So a septic tank, it's a tank where wastewater is going into. If you have a toilet, you attach it, and then there could be wastewater or fecal or whatever going into this like tank with septic. And if you compare the size of these tanks in India to many other similar countries, it's 4 times as big in India. And it's not because we have 4 times as much money, because it's much more expensive to build big ones. But no, it's because you don't want to empty it. And why don't you want to empty the septic tank in India compared to many other countries? Yeah, we have this problem everywhere that you don't want to empty it because it's like poo there that is there. How do you empty it? But in India, this is connected to caste. And this is because I'm not sure how much people already know about caste in India, and I'm not the best one to tell you about it either, but there are different castes. And people are, let's call it ranked in a hierarchy. And down in the bottom, you would have the ones that would be called the untouchables. Let's call them Dalits. And they are the ones, there are a fraction of them that are forced to do manual scavenging. Like they are forced to like by their hands manually without any equipment, without any pump, anything, removing the pee and the poo from whatever you find it in the society. So for instance, if you have a toilet, if you have a sewage network, for instance, that we see here on the picture, there are this group that are forced to do it. And this job is passed in generation from a woman, and here you also come to the gender, from a woman to the woman of the son in the next generation. So if I would get married to a husband and my mother-in-law would have done this work, I would be forced. This would be passed on to me. It would be my destiny to do this by my hands. And it's a constitutional banned practice in India, but still this is how it's done. And it creates so much problem for these people. And it's not a small group. There are different numbers when it comes to everything, but approximately 1.3 million people are in this group doing manual scavenging work. And it spreads a lot of diseases. A lot of people die early, and they are also neglected from the society. So this woman, for instance, she can't touch anyone else in the village, sit next to or share the same water source as any other member of the village. Like if there's a dead animal, those will be the ones that has to clean it. The children are highly discriminated, not always allowed to go to the same school. Some people have said that this would be like slavery by birth, by caste, by gender. Strong words, I know, but for sure it's a very hard situation for these people. And there have been protests, there have been laws, there have been people that have tried to quit, to burn their tools and say like, we really don't want to do this work. It's no one should do manual scavenging work. But what we see is that it's very hard to quitting. You can have economical boycott from the community. You can have threats if you try to leave. If you as a woman or as a man doing this manual scavenging work, if you want to leave, you could have huge problem from the village. And the higher castes, they would for sure don't want to do it, because then they can't go to the temple. They will instead be rejected from the society, and so on. So this is something I would find different if you compare India to many other countries when it comes to water and sanitation. So to understand sanitation in India, I would definitely say that you also have to understand the situation for the women and also understand caste. And to discuss sanitation in India, you also have to discuss these issues. So this is where I would like to start. I hope I kept the time. Maybe we can continue.
You have some minutes left.
I have some minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's perfect. That's perfect. Yes, so let's see if I can go back and see if there's something more I would like to highlight from the culture, no flashing. No, I think I will leave it for now here, and we will have questions instead, because I would love to be able to answer questions instead. Thank you.
Yes, then I will see. I will quit your now. Okay, thank you so much. That was really interesting, and also very sad, of course. There's a lot going on and has been going on. So I think we open the floor for questions. Then I can just start with a question. One thing I thought of is like you mentioned, Ashok, a bit like the right-wing politics that is uprising now in India and so on. So like maybe both of you could tell us a bit more about the political climate and how that actually affects the management of water and so on.
You want me to start going on right-wing politics? Okay.
Yeah, I think this for sure is something for you, Ashok. I will leave the floor open talking about the right wing to you.
Okay, thank you. That's very nice. As you know, the right-wing politics or populism is a global phenomenon which is going on for some time, and India has become fallen into that trap. There is a Hindu right-wing nationalism which is running in the country since 2014. It has taken the power with the complete majority, and I think this has brought into, the party was in power before, but in coalition, but now it is full power in full power. I'm not getting into detail of that, but I think considering coming back to this, what is happening in the context of water politics, it has become because it's a nationalistic approach. It is trying to see the water as a security weapon of nationalism, weapon of security, securitizing it. That's why you will see, as I mentioned in 2016, whether I was trying to avoid this topic, because if you see in 2016, for the first time after 1960, the Indian leaders wanted to withdraw from the Indus Treaty. Indus Treaty is not easy to withdraw because it's an Indus Treaty between India and Pakistan, but World Bank is also another signatory. It's a one treaty in the world, which is World Bank is another one of the signatories. So, but the why, and then they keep on saying that they will stop the water, which is almost impossible because the three rivers which goes through the Pakistan, the three rivers which are given to Pakistan, this is Jhelum, Chenab, and Indus. Though they go through the Indian controlled Kashmir, then they go to the Pakistan controlled Kashmir. And there is, if India wants to block that water, what shall you do with the water? Because the water, you have to use the helicopters or something to take that water from the over the Himalayas to get it to the Indian context. So these are all bluff, which is goes on. But if the bluff makes also the similar type of people much stronger in Pakistan side. So the relationship has become quite complicated in that sense. And this is already getting into this scenario. Then similarly, the India-Nepal scenario, which has, because you expect, because these are Hindu nationalists in India and Nepal is the only other country where the Hindu majority, the relationship would be better. I was also hoping against hope that I thought probably they will do better there. But that has also gone really terribly, terribly bad in the Nepal. The reason is because though they're Hindus, but the nationalism has come in. So there is major challenge which is taking place recently, even the territorial, I mean, I have never seen the dispute between India and Nepal. They used to have a little bit before, but not to this extent. It is really terrible. And I think also India-China relationship has become much more problematic now. Though there was a Quad meeting, you might have heard there is a new thing coming called the Asian NATO, means in Australia, Japan, US, and India. They have been meeting, they used to meet in 2007, but then it stopped down from 2017 when Trump came in, they started, and they're saying that it will be India's NATO, Asia's NATO. That's not possible, but because that's a long story, but if it will be Asia's NATO, India will be Turkey. Don't ask me how to explain it, but I will, that's not again the question. But the question is, it is really making China mad. China is, every time China had kept this big dam project on the upstream of Brahmaputra, frozen for some time, but now it has come up. It just started the last 2 months again to bring back to this. I think the last week also it was this, their National Assembly, whatever they call it, it was formally approved, but it's the big boy has already approved it somehow. It's not exactly for the water, but it is somehow to keep India in a much more complicated situation. And the same thing that the river link, which I mentioned, it's the similar nationalistic project that it's a one country, one religion, one leader, one nation, one language, one thing, whatever, I don't want. Let's put it everything one. And the country like India, if anyone knows, it can never be one. I mean, it is the beauty of India is that it's a different, it's a diverse, but it has certain kind of value and moral, which they have lost it, but try to make it one. But in that case, if you link the rivers, that also the part of making India one project. The kind of thing Debora was mentioning, yes, the present leader had put this toilet as a toilet is not a new revolution, but of course he tried to make it because it had certain kind of implications. It really made certain kind of because India becoming clean. It's also connected to this Ganges River making clean, because this also goes into the kind of thing that we want to make India a kind of, which is nice. I mean, of course, everybody wants to have that kind of proper sanitation, clean rivers. Who doesn't want that? But the aim is not exactly the environment. Aim is not public health. Aim is to show or project India in a different way, which will really part of their campaign, which is going on. So, which is a good thing. I'm not. I mean, I think it's but not the campaign part. But because of the campaign, some of the things which they have done. But of course, they have built the toilets. But the toilets don't have the water. Toilets, 100% toilets. I mean, that's absolutely. I mean, the statistics. Nobody believes them. They don't even believe themselves. So it's just a situation which has come. It has created its own image, and it has been prisoner of that its own image. And the water has been suffering because of that. Also, part of the water is not the only issue, but water has been one of the main issue in that kind of power or nationalistic game.
Yeah, and also suffers consequences in the future and right now as well. Thank you for an elaborated answer, really. If I were to just move on to the questions from the audience, I think Molly was first with a question in the chat. So I will just read it out loud. If you don't want to say it out loud, Molly. Okay, so it's for both of you. So maybe not related to the topics discussed now, but what is your view on large-scale corporations such as Coca-Cola contributing to water scarcity, while also polluting necessary dams and other waste bodies?
Yeah, so I can start there. So there is so many dimensions with this, but I would say that corporations, large-scale corporations and companies have a big impact on the environment general in many countries, also in India, but also in many other parts of the world. And so if you think about the water usage that we have here in Sweden, we would say that we maybe use 140 liters per day or something in Sweden. That's something that we usually would say. So it's like a bath tube every day. But only by every cup of coffee that we're drinking, it's the same equal amount of water that we are importing from other countries. It's called virtual water. And this is something that I found very, very important to think about the global water footprint that people in many different countries have on other countries by importing different items. So virtual water, something I think is very, very important because it really affects, the consumption that is done in, like, for instance, Sweden or Europe or whatever countries affects other countries, including India. So this, and it's Coca-Cola they are such a good big company, so it's maybe easy to take them as example, but for sure we have many other examples around the world with big companies really affecting the environment. So for the virtual water, we both have the problem by that we import big amount of water or export from countries big amount of water since we can pay for it, and this water in that way is lost from those countries, and that really affects the groundwater level that we have already been Ashok have already been talking about before. And also you have the wastewater coming out and really affecting the rivers. Those rivers that you were talking about are some of them, but almost all the rivers connected to different kind of big scale companies are highly polluted in India. You cannot drink the water anymore. So that really, really affects the water bodies a lot. And this is something that is on us, all of us that consume these products from all around the world.
Would you say that there are sustainable solutions for these very big transnational corporations? Or would you say that it may be more a bit of behavior shifting and that they may be not able to survive?
I would love to say that there would be a good solution, but yeah, so if I want to be positive, I would say, yeah, you can do regulation, you can change laws, etc., etc. But in some way, if rich people can import that huge amount of water by just thinking about every cup of coffee that you drink, and these are taken from countries with less resources, And of course, that will also create tension within the societies with lower groundwater. So we've been talking about the tension between countries, but also have the tension within the communities when there's lack of water. And then you have the lack of sanitation, and then you have all these other problems coming from there. So I would say that they have, it's a huge problem, and I don't really know if I have a good answer. Of course, I have a lot of engineering answers, and I also know that there would be possible to do a lot of regulations. For instance, treating wastewater. Oh my God, you can treat sewage water, like water from the toilet. You can treat it into drinking water. I've drunken that water, I'm fine. Like, you can do this, it's okay. But will you do it? I mean, since also the holy rivers are India are so highly polluted, I'm not sure if we can see this a change coming very soon, but hopefully, but I don't see it now.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely. And also a question from Molly is if water in general is seen as a collective resource, or has the scarcity led to privatization of water resource? Ashok?
I think I will, one of the answer is the Coca-Cola had, there was in state in Kerala, which you might have heard in the southern part of India, there was a case against Coca-Cola by the farmers associations that the Coca-Cola is using the water and taking the water from the groundwater. And these kind of conflicts which goes on, and now even the farmers' protest which is going on in India, which you might have heard, it's also basically the farmers are thinking that, or farmers are on the view that the government is doing only for two or three major business houses which are close to the government, so to their benefit. So the kind of thing is there is a transfer of that kind of the agricultural, what do you call, the control of the agriculture, or the from the farmers to the move it to the big companies or big business houses. And I think this is somehow we are having this kind of all the time these problems that who really wants this. Well, I mean, this is supposed to, water is a human rights issue. Water and sanitation has become part of human rights. There has to be, the state needs to provide the basic amount of water to the people in any way. How to find that way is a bigger question. I mean, somehow they have to. It's unthinkable. I mean, imagine if you say a couple of decades ago, you go to United States, the water you're getting into the taps were terrible than the water you get in Delhi. So, but now things have changed. So there is a certain kind of course, you will ask in Michigan or other some places they have not changed, but there have been some changes which taken place. But this is always this good challenge goes on. What we need to do, what we should not do. But look, that these countries like in India can really do clean lots of what you call the wastewater treatment, which could have been done very well. And you are telling Debora, because I was advising Singapore government when they had a conflict with Malaysia almost 20 years ago, because they had a major conflict, which Malaysia sends the water to Singapore, the raw water, Singapore cleans it and gives it back to Malaysia. Some sells it and some keeps it. So it's become a bigger problem. Anyway, that time, Singapore really got scared that the water supply will not come from Malaysia. So they created a water called the new water. It's come to toilet, cleaning the water. The bottles you will see is as good as, I mean, I think we don't produce that good bottles in Sweden. Of course, we should not. We should drink our tap water. But the thing is that the new water became quite, with the Prime Minister, Singaporean Prime Minister went to public and started drinking. And that's it. If you go to Singapore, you can buy that water. So this is possible. The technology can make it possible. And if you look at the areas, I mean, look at Jakarta and the Brisbane. I mean, the kind of water which goes on, almost 100% of water gets cleaned up and then goes to the system. Whereas cities like Delhi, you look at the river in Jamuna, which is, or even Bangalore, there is the lakes which brings the foam in the time of because of so much of pollution. So I think this is somehow you can, a state's role is extremely important of how to maintain the quality of water and providing a basic supply because it's a human rights issue. But otherwise, how you manage it, who gets the benefits, how gets profit, that's a different question that we can argue on ideologically. But as a basic, a country, a civilized, basic civilization demands the people should have basic availability of a need, which is absolutely necessary for their survival.
Yeah. I would also like to add there, like treating wastewater is actually not that hard. So I wouldn't say it's hard technical problem. Like, don't think about this as a technical problem at all, because treating it, you would definitely be able to solve it, like you also were saying. But I would just like to highlight that this is not like a big technical problem at all to like treat, for instance, wastewater from the toilet into drinking water. It's not a big problem anymore. This can really be done. It's more about other things, for sure.
Thanks for that input. I at least I didn't know that it was kind of more affordable than I thought. But would you say that it's more the state that is more responsible for the management, or more the provinces and the smaller units in India?
You're asking me or Debora?
The one that filled the.
So I don't know how it's governed. So Ashok, please go ahead.
Okay, the water issue is because India doesn't have a common water law. I mean, it doesn't have because the water depends on the sometimes province deal it. Sometimes there is no one water governing system in that sense in India. There is no one water law. I think that creates a number of conflicts. And that is also because it's not that the previous leaders were stupid, but I think that's probably the part of the way India is needed to be governed, because it's a lot of complications. You cannot really give that kind of power or keep that kind of power at the center. Because why this is happening problem? Look at this. You might have had a conflict going on between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, two southern Indian states, and also Kerala is involved in the Kaveri River, which is quite infamous internal conflicts which goes on. It's a Supreme Court, India's Supreme Court. The Indian central leadership said, okay, we can't really get it. Supreme Court thinks that it can really give a verdict. It gave a verdict, but nobody, because then it become a riot. India's Supreme Court, I have written before, it should not get into that system, because it's almost impossible, because these are the negotiations. States need to be engaged among themselves to find a solution where they can benefit each other, rather than you can't enforce this kind of decision from the top. And also there is a lack of trust in the institutions, because these are the conflicts which takes place in US and Australia, this kind of provincial conflict. I mean, remember there was been even the Californian governor, when Ronald Reagan was California's governor, he wanted to raise an army and invade Arizona because of the Colorado River. But when the Supreme Court gave American Supreme Court gave a verdict, all these states, accepted it. In India, nobody accepts anything. So in a sense, I mean, because it's not that the people do, but you have to develop that kind of trust and confidence in the system, also institutions. So I think though there is because there is the present government regime is trying to create a national water law, which I think sometimes I think good, but sometimes probably this will not be effective because of this reason what I mentioned. But I think it's a part of the thing which the states should be given the possibility to negotiate the water, which is extremely politically very sensitive. And unless they get a negotiated settlement, you cannot enforce a settlement from the top.
Yeah, thank you. I think we will just continue. We have 4 minutes left of the original time. So I will just read the questions very fast. No, I think Sana was raising her hand before. Do you still have a question, Sana?
Yeah, I sort of have a question. It was about this unilateral management processes that was going on in India right now. Do you see that the issues of water scarcity will be solved through more multilateral governance between the states and not only like within India? Or is it more like a technical issue within India and managing that technicality?
You want me to go? Or Debora, you want to take? Okay. This is something to have a multi-level approach. If you want me to say this, because if as I mentioned, if the Indus River, I would suggest that they should go for a new negotiation, new agreement, and bringing China and Afghanistan together. So if there are 4 countries they can negotiate, that will be possible. In the Ganges Brahmaputra, because it's one basin, then if China is not engaged, not getting interested, at least India should have a kind of system together with Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh. You have to have that kind of possibility to work together. But those are the larger level. At the local, at the national level, the national level is to divert the strategy from this kind of supply side, that we should build more dams, we should link rivers, than the kind of things what we have. How we can manage well, how we can really make the wastewater treatment well, how we can really use the kind of new technique to develop irrigation facility. And also one thing which we need to realize that India also need to find some way how to, the world has, because imagine if we have a better technology and environmentally sustainable system to desalinize the seawater, the whole water scarcity scenario will change overnight, because it's not the scarcity of water, it's the scarcity of fresh water is the problem. And so the scientists, those who are here, what's the Kennedy, when he was the president, he asked the American scientists, he gave them two jobs to do. One, go to the moon. The other one is to desalinize the water. We went to the moon, but we can't desalinize the water well enough. We do desalinize the water, but it's expensive. So if we find a technique to desalinize the water and also not being but being environmentally sustainable, because that's somehow you need to find that technology, then possibly the scenario will change. But the management, local water management, has to be demand side rather than supply side in India. And the management of water should be given to the experts, not to be in the politicians' hand. And if that is there, then probably they can address to some extent.
Yeah, just one thing I would like to comment on that, like salinized water, that's really something that is very important to keep in mind. Just because you have groundwater, you cannot use it. And this is what happens in many parts of the world, also in India, that you use too much water and then there is salt coming in there. So, but the technologies for desalination water has really changed a lot, like last 5 years. So now we don't really find a problem to salinate water. It's kind of expensive, you need a lot of pressure, but there is a huge rapid development in this technology. So, but you need like a good electrical grid. So you cannot just put it anywhere. You need to have the maintenance, so you cannot just put it anywhere. You need to make sure that if something is broken, you need to be able to fix it and so on. So we still have a lot of problem, but there I can see that we could have a technical solution, but just because we have a technical solution, we're not able to just implement it. Not yet, maybe in the future. Let's see.
Yeah, technically tech will not save us yet.
Not yet.
I don't know if it's okay for you to if you go over a few minutes, because there's so many questions. Like if you have to leave, you can just tell us. But if it would be okay, just continue to ask some of the questions that we have gotten.
Okay, it's okay for me.
And for you, Ashok?
Okay, go ahead. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so we have a question from Theodore, and I will just read it out loud as before. Over the last few years, there have been discussions regarding day zeros in major urban centers, where water access reaches critical levels and water may no longer be available in taps. How likely is this to occur in the coming years? And what is being done to manage this issue? What would be the economic and social effects if this occurs?
So 100% likely, I would say, because it has already happened in many cities. So I would for sure say that this will happen again and again and again. So that's like the fast and rapid answer on this one, that this is a problem that we see in many countries around the world, and for sure in India also. And it has already happened. And what was the other questions again? Let's see.
Yeah,
what to do to manage this issue?
Yeah.
Oof, that's a harder question for sure. So then we both have the technical, there is a need to take care of the resources, and you need to have better technical maintenance, and you need to invest money in the water. So there's so many things that has to be done and it's different from city to city. Like some cities, for instance, maybe have good or they have at least water. They have like the quantity, but then you need to remove the contaminations. And in some places you have good water, but you don't have enough water. In some places, like Ashok were saying before, you have it seasonally, sometime during the year, but not all year long. So it really depends on where you are and the reason for this issue. So it's kind of hard to give like a general answer, even if you want to talk generally in India, because it's very big difference in different parts of India. But you have the problem that you don't have enough water. You don't have enough water throughout the year. The water that you actually have is very dirty, so you need to treat it a lot. And then if you need to treat it, then you need all these different things in order to deliver water. You need pressure to pump the water from one place to another. And even if you have like, let's say like you have a pipe and you can fill it with 100% water, and this is what you want to do. But as soon as you only fill it with like 95% or 90 or something, when it's like goes down a little bit, all this water gets contaminated and all has to be wasted, or you can get sick. But what you do is that you continue to drink it anyway, and then you get sick. But it's good to know that it's all these different technical issues that also are there, like makes it even hard. Like if it's like a like slopey hill, like the worst it gets when it comes to this issue, the more rapid and the more problems you will have. The more the groundwater sinks, the less likely you will be able to fill it up the next year. So if you like
cycle kind of, yeah.
Yes, it really like makes everything worse year by year. And this is something that we really see a lot when it comes to the groundwater. Some of the groundwater that is gone in India will never be able to come back. Like they're gone forever.
Yeah.
But Ashok, maybe you could also point out some of the like more Indian context, like what management could be done, because we have all these technical problems for sure that it's needed to be solved. But yeah, maybe you can also.
But I think they can bring back certain kind of traditional technology, which is there have been. But I think you have to combine the traditional knowledge with the new knowledge. You can't really deal with the traditional knowledge with the new demand and the population. It is somehow this kind of issue is also getting into the kind of political incentive we give at the time of election. I mean, then this idea that water is God-given, God's gift. Everything is God's gift, if you want to believe that. But why only water will be free? Because water should be properly, because I think many places what happens, water becomes a good or easy way of political benefits owning or political brownies on it. And I think these are the there are all sorts of challenges which comes in, and the policies which are done actually not been very thoughtful. I mean, remember there is a state in Bihar which wanted to use the water tax. The amount of water tax they collected the amount of money they spent to collect water tax was 3 times more than the water tax get collected. So if that is the way your system, your institutions, your functions, then it becomes a problematic. And I think you have to have a basic change in the mindset and institutions to get a proper certain kind of grip over the water. But the crisis is real. The water crisis is real. It's becoming urgent, and the climate change is making much worse. The temperature rise has taken place. 3 degrees has already gone up in the Indian side, some of the states' average temperature. The way things are, the fluctuation, the way you will see recently with the massive glacier lake outburst flood in the Himalayas. There are, 60 people or 50 to 60 people died because of this. But there was no India is only news for 2 hours. That's over. Because we don't have even the possibility of discussing this. It's just forgotten out of this because the kind of importance it has, because most of this water coming from the Himalayas, and if the dams are coming from the Himalayas. So it's a somehow, I think the priorities are not right. The politics is not right. The society is moving in a very wrong direction, the way it's supposed to be. So it's a very difficult time. I'm sorry to say, but I think I'm not trying to give a very, image that everything is over, because we as human beings, we always, when we are pushed to the corner, we try to find some ways how to go, get back what we're supposed to be somehow. But I hope the time will come, but the time hasn't yet come from that perspective.
Yeah, really priority for sure, and put the right people on the right place. Like some of these issues could easily be solved if you have money. You use the money in a good way. Don't let the money disappear in someone's pocket. You don't let the money disappear in useless projects. But like I said before, I don't see a bright future. And the most reports we read about day zero, about water, the future of India when it comes to water, gives a very sad image.
Yeah, but we have kind of proved, at least globally, that the coronavirus has gotten us to move fast and develop a vaccine and so on. So as you said, when people are pushed to the point, maybe development happens faster.
That could really be so by 2030 there are reports saying that in India the amount of water needed is twice the amount that are available, something like that. But of course you shouldn't trust all numbers, but just to keep in your mind that something really needs to change. But of course there could be change, and there has to be a change, and all this social tension within the society and within countries, of course, there has to be a change.
We have to go back to the Gandhian principle: what is need and what is demand. Demand, yeah, of course,
yeah. I think we will have to stop there, but perhaps the questions that are left, which are really interesting, maybe you could be reached by email and they could ask it directly, perhaps.
Fine.
Yes, we will send out the email afterwards, after the event. But just to finish it, we would like to thank both of you so much for coming here today. Yes, and applause.
It's our pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for us too. Yes.
Thank you so much.
I've learned so much this evening, and I will continue to learn now that I have a better ground of these many issues. So thank you very much, and thank all of you for being here, the listeners and the audience as well.
Thank you. Stay safe. It's a quite difficult time, but stay safe.
Yes, you too. And I hope that we will see you on our next event. We will come up with dates later on, but it will happen more with FUF in Uppsala later in the spring. So I guess that's it. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All the best.